Hey, well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for finding some time in your day to be here. We are excited to begin our latest landscape of practice meeting. So just so you know, I will just kind of provide a brief overview, and then I'm very excited to turn the floor over to Manak. Oh. Hey, so before I begin, I would like to acknowledge that the land on which Carleton University, where I am currently situated, operates is located on unceded, unsurrendered traditional territories of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. And we also want to acknowledge the diverse histories and cultures of all Indigenous peoples across Turtle Island, and encourage everyone to reflect on the traditional territory in which you and your institution or your home is currently located on. So as I mentioned, I'm just going to provide a very brief overview of the project, our overall project in which we've received funding to do this landscape of practice. I have a little video to share about Manak and his fantastic work with Prezdential basketball. And then we will have a bit of a Q&A with Manak, and we'll open the floor for some questions. So just as a friendly reminder for those who have been here before, or for folks who are new to this, we received funding from the Public Health Agency of Canada. Their call to prevent and address family violence, the health perspective. So what our work is really proposing to do is leverage trauma and violence informed approaches to physical activity programming to improve the health and well-being of individuals who have experienced family violence. So we have sites across Toronto, Ottawa, and Vancouver. So I guess I should really introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Francine Derrick, and I am a professor at Carleton University in Ottawa, and I am the co-lead investigator on this study. But most importantly, the individual we are all here today to see is Manak, and he is the founder and head coach at Prezdential Basketball. And I'm very hopeful that this video will work.
When I play basketball, I feel free. Freer than I've ever felt. It's a way to stop reality for a second and just tune into an action, an expression. That's what basketball is to me, freedom. My name is Manak Noel. I am the CEO and founder of Prezdential Basketball, which is an organization that uses basketball as a tool to empower our youth. I'm a South Sudanese refugee, and basketball was something that provided me an outlet to purge emotions that I couldn't understand coming from war trauma at a young age. My father and my mother had to flee the country with my family. So my experience as a young man coming to Canada, discovering the first time I realized I was Black. Coming from a different country, I'd never seen color in my life. I'm a human, you're a human, right? The first time was calling, and like, just going home and like looking yourself after that experience, and then looking at other Black people and realizing that your shade's a lot darker than everyone else, right? And like growing up, that was very tough, you know? It was very, very tough because you're looking around and no one looks like you. All that rage, all that pain, all that killing I saw at a young age, like, I gotta put that all on the court in a healthy environment. When we're playing basketball, labels dissolve. So I've never had anybody within any of my programs talk about being Black, talk about being white, talk about being fat, talk about being thin. It's all human beings just on their simplest level interacting with one another to win a game, you know, to get to a goal. And I think that locks out all the labels and the misconceptions. And they're understanding that I can't win this game by myself because it takes 5, right? And they're understanding how to use teamwork to accomplish whatever goals they need to. The older guys are starting to lead the younger guys. The younger guys are having more confidence, they're developing, and then they're also leading the next group of younger guys. And it's just a cycle. It's like a beautiful cycle. You went through it, you gained your confidence, then you got better, and now you're in a position where you can give that to somebody else. To see kids that come in shy and leave with friends is one of the best feelings ever.
It takes a community to make a city great, to accomplish all goals, to be successful people.
For us to heal one another.
It takes a community!
So as mentioned, I'm going to, pitch out a few questions to you, and we also welcome anybody in the audience to put any questions you may have in the chat function, or we will also open it up to the floor after. So Manik, my first question for you is, what inspired you to start an organization like this in Ottawa?
So it's a little bit about myself then. Like what we saw in the story, I haven't saw that video in a long time, but just looking at it and really thinking about my journey in a sense, right? Coming at a young age and not really understanding how to communicate with everybody, but understanding that once basketball season started, that I was going to make friends. I was going to have a community of people that share similarities with me, right? And then getting to the point where I go to high school now, and because my parents fled the country during war, they weren't able to kind of finish their education. So having to navigate high school and applying for university and these kind of things. And like, honestly, till this day, I say it, like, I wouldn't have went to university if I couldn't have played basketball. Like, I was talented enough where university scouts would come to Ottawa and walk me through the processes of how to apply for the schools. That was one of my requirements, right? To even talk to me as a university. Along with a full scholarship and other things, but that was very, very important to me. Meet my parents and walk me through the process. Then I get into the university level, and I see a lot of my friends not going to university. I see a lot of my friends going into the street life, and you start to ask questions, like, what am I doing different? Why am I out here as opposed to them, in a sense, right? Survival's remorse, in a sense. You go to university and you start to understand the business behind basketball, signing your rights to a university for 4 years, right? And then having to deal with coaching, playing time, managing your schedule, everything like that. You get to the professional level and it gets even more about business, right? You're so replaceable. There is so many people waiting for you to mess up. If your numbers are not right, if you are overeating and you're getting too heavy and slow, anything, like, you are a product in that sense, right? So you have to know how to manage your product in a sense. Just kind of seeing all the poison in the game, from each level was my inspiration to go back and kind of provide a pathway for youth that are coming up in the neighborhoods that we grew up in, to have an easier time transitioning without losing themselves along the journey.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I know obviously this work is so deeply informed by your lived experience and your experience playing at a collegiate level and then at a professional level. Can you sort of expand more on sort of how the principles of your program and what they're founded on?
I thought about that question. Like, we have our basic principles, right? We have our leadership development. Like, I would say my goal as a mentor and kind of with what I'm doing is to get into the soul of people. So connect with people through empathy on a level that's deeper than the surface, right? And I think that's where the transformative work really, really begins. Our program, how they differ from other programs, I would say is I'm trying to create simulations of real experiences for these youth so that when they're going through it, it's almost like you get to practice before you get into the real world and actually have to execute, right? You get to make your mistakes, you get to build your confidence, you get to understand what it really takes and what I'm missing before you get into the actual live setting, right? So I say, that's kind of the what makes our program so much different than everybody else. Like, I'll give you an example. Our youth media program, we had the opportunity to curate content for Rogers TV during the municipal election for Ottawa last year. And these youth had to get outside themselves downtown and interview random people on a hot day that don't want to stop and talk to you. So you have to build a pitch, you have to experience rejection on the spot, you have to get outside yourself and outside of your comfort zones. And this is where the growth truly begins.
Mhm. Yeah, it's fascinating. And I think, the video clip that we showed was really just sort of one piece of what you do. But what I think is phenomenal about your work is that it really bridges, sports, arts, and mentorship to youth who otherwise may not have access to those resources and supports. So I guess how do you bridge all of those areas?
I think you start small. Like when I first started this, it was just a basketball vehicle. So the goal was to get 12 youth from my community full scholarship opportunities. And we were very successful with that, right? And then around Christmas, 3 of our youth, they weren't going back to school. They were just in the neighborhood. And then one of our youth actually almost got shot. Actually, he got shot. He got shot in the arm. So then it was, okay, yo, like, what are we doing, man? We've set you guys up for an opportunity. It's almost a slap in the face that you're back in the neighborhood doing nothing, right? So they told us, getting angry and lashing out, we connected with them and they told us, like, listen, you prepared us to play basketball, but you did not prepare us for the organization that it takes to manage this level of success in university, for the structures of the classroom, for any of these environments, right? And through our failures came new success. Okay, so how do we go deeper? How do we prep you for financial literacy so that when you're going out there, you understand how to utilize credit so you don't leave university with $50,000 worth of debt, right? You're on a full scholarship, you should make money going to university, not lose money, so it's prepping these kids. And I think that led to new revelations and new growth and new experiences, but it all starts from what we know, which is basketball being the core.
Yeah, I think it's amazing to sort of hear about how, there's these opportunities and there's other factors that we maybe wouldn't consider once those opportunities are available, and how, you and your team have taken those challenges, and turned them into really amazing learning opportunities and expanding the program. So how do you really kind of tailor, your work to the priority community that you're trying to reach?
I think the first thing we do is we lay a foundation with basketball programming. And our programming is so engaging in different ways that it gives us the ability to now get into the data. So after the program is laid, we start asking questions like, what else are you guys missing in this area, right? What is not being provided? How can we help you become more successful? But I think it all starts with building trust, right? So we start with what we know. A great basketball program, they see their growth through becoming leaders, they see their self-esteem grow, these areas in themselves. Then they come into you and they're telling you what they need in their community, and you're providing it with them. So it's almost youth driven in a sense, right? During COVID, for example, we had the lockdown. So the traditional model of I have a community center, kids should come was done. It was now, how do you engage online? And our path was unique because we started with social media strategies. We didn't have a facility. We had just a gym through community use of school rentals. So social media was our game. And when things shut down, it gave us opportunities to get more creative. And from that experience, we were able to create the Overbrook Show. So a TV show that was just launched on Rogers TV last year all started from an opportunity to engage kids online through building the right community. At that time, you're online, you're seeing police murdering Black folks, you're seeing all this toxic stuff being put out there, right? So how do we combat that? We put out videos on dreadlocks, and the power of your hair, on braids, and what it means to different social classes and cultures, right? So it's kind of enriching people's soul as much as possible.
Right. And yeah, it's amazing to think how youth driven all of your work is. But, as a lot of people on this call likely realize, there are certainly a number of resources that are required to meet the needs of the youth and to keep programming like yours going. Can you speak to some of the partnerships that Presidential has formed that has, helped or contributed to making this programming so successful?
Yeah, like we've definitely had a lot of partners that have helped us grow along the way. I think um like one of our partners right now, actually, we partnered with Onfi, and through that partnership, we created an entrepreneurship program tailored to basketball. So youth that are very interested in basketball, how can you create a business out of the game in a sense, right? Which teaches you marketing, branding, and other things. So I think when it comes to strategic partnerships, like we're in a place right now where not all partnerships are good partnerships, right? It has to be something that you're not able to provide for yourself in a sense where that person is bringing a whole different set of skills that would just kind of make the work, make it all kind of come together in a sense.
Yeah. And what would you say is the most inspiring thing about the work that you do?
I think it's seeing someone grow, like someone coming into your program that is scared or that doesn't have the ability. Because I think if you're chasing success, you're gonna go through imposter syndrome, right? And I think it's very powerful to see how you can help somebody get over those types of fears and allow them to kind of grow into a space where they're a completely different version of themselves, right? That's kind of the key to all this, human transformation.
Right. Yeah, and I know, Manok, like your presidential basketball is so deeply rooted and encompasses like your lived experience. Um, how do you think those lived experiences, and again, I know you spoke to this sort of in your kind of first comment that you made, but how does it help you with your interactions on sort of a day-to-day level with the folks who are taking part in your programming?
I think it's like there's two things. Like I really lived, when I say I lived, I like made a lot of mistakes, and I think that's what living is about, right? So those mistakes are kind of my tool to be able to connect with them, and I think that they see similarities. Like when growing up, like there's a lot of mentors we had access to, right? And they looked like us as well, right? But they didn't have the same lived experiences. It was so hard to connect with a diplomat's son that has been raised in a whole different style of living than the ones that we were coming from. They couldn't understand why we were lashing out or taking risks that weren't appropriate for that age, right? So I think being able to live and walk in the shoes that some of these youth are walking in, the perspectives that I'm giving them, it's reality. It isn't with judgment, it's clarity.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an amazing lens to be able to bring to the work that you do. Um, what do you see as some of the biggest barriers to folks who may want to access physical activity in the communities that you work with?
It's a great question. That question, so the answer to that question constantly changes. It's never the same thing. I think pre-COVID, one thing that I was seeing was anytime that I wanted to book any facilities in our own community for the kids in the community, they were all booked up. And then when you find out who are they booked up by, you're understanding that and I think everybody deserves gym time, don't get me wrong, but when let's say an organization from Canada is booking up gym time in Overbrook that's not going to the community it's serving, and it has it booked up for 6 months, even times that they're not using. I think that's where the barriers are getting at right now. Accessibilities. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have enough gym spaces. There's too many kids at this point right now. So I think what we're trying to do this summer is how do we bring these programs into your community? So, like how do we bring them to literally your front step into your community?
Mhm. Yeah. And I know, Manik, you and I have had conversations about, why a trauma-informed approach to physical movement, to basketball, to, whatever we're trying to engage community members in. Um, why do you think it's important that we have like a trauma-informed lens when we're doing this work, whether it be through, lived experience or through just really understanding kind of the key tenets that would drive that approach?
Can you ask the question in a different way?
Yeah, yeah. So why is it important for physical activity practitioners or community organizers or researchers to understand how trauma can impact the individuals that they work with? And in your case, sort of within that physical activity environment or on the courts, like how would trauma impact their involvement or lack thereof in movement practices?
Interesting. So I've worked with thousands of kids, and trauma is always, it's rarely you see a kid that has no trauma, right? That is just like both parents, healthy young man, healthy young woman. Like it's very rare that you see that, right? There's always some sorts of trauma that come along with it. So I think you have to understand which communities you're approaching, right? Because some communities will have different traumas right off the bat. But I think all communities have trauma.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think sort of building on that and knowing that, we have a diverse audience that are here with us today. But do you have any advice for maybe researchers or community organizers who are eager to engage with community members but aren't quite sure where to start?
I think you got to identify your purpose. What is driving the work that you are looking to get accomplished? Because that purpose is going to lead you towards your success. In a sense, if you don't have a purpose, you're just going to be searching. And when you're searching, you can find the answer, but at the same time, you could never find the answer. So first, identify why you're doing this. Like while I was doing this in the beginning, it was really just like, how many youth can I help? Get a pipeline. How many youth can I give an opportunity to continue their education and continue playing basketball, and leave the neighborhood for a while, go see different parts of the world so that you can come back with a whole new perspective. And now it's grown, now it's how many youth can we impact in a way where we're creating new leaders, we're creating healthy human beings. And I think in the future, my goal is to transform this into becoming almost like an angel investor. How many youth from our community can we sustain financially in a way where we're giving them supports to create their own entrepreneurship vehicles? I think that's when, if we create enough financial success around our economies, and I mean economic systems around our neighborhoods, we're able to actually make change.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think I mean everything you're speaking to, it's amazing to see how your work has been responsive to youth and evolved, and really how, physical activity, something that, people could arguably say is, as simple as basketball or whatever sport you're interested in, really can change the trajectory of somebody's life.
100%.
Yeah, do you want to
100%.
speak any more to that? Like this is.
Yeah, like honestly, like I literally I came to this country at a young age, like I said before, and I would fight every single day. Every single day. If I didn't like the way you looked at me, if I didn't like what you said, I didn't even understand English to a degree, right? But if you said something that I didn't like the tone of, I was just fighting. And it was like, why was I fighting? I didn't understand that until I got into basketball and later on in my life, where I'm like, I was fighting because I saw human beings kill each other. I saw what human beings look like without compassion, without empathy, how disgusting we can be, as and to me that really scarred me in a sense. And what basketball was an environment where I can be as aggressive as possible. I can really purge those demons that I had inside without even knowing that I had these demons, right? So it kept me in a pace where, like, I'm seeing my friends hit the streets and do things that are out of character, and it's like the only reason why I didn't do none of those things as well is because I had a place to purge that stuff. So I really think sports and physical activity, a lot of people from my community and other communities share similarities in that story.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I do want to take an opportunity to open up the floor to questions. I know I've been asking a lot of them, so I'm sure Manik would be happy to hear someone's voice other than mine.
Yeah, like before COVID, that old traditional model, it was dying. Even the way that we present the information to our youth, attention spans have changed, right? And everybody's still putting information out there in posters. I don't see these kids reading anymore. Like you need to put in work. You gotta be videographers at your program. You have to show them literally what you're able to offer them in a sense, right? So kids are no longer budging. They're not just showing up because you have a great program. You got to show me why it's great. And that's a whole different dynamic. I noticed that parents or programs were being developed to please parents as opposed to engage children. You get what I mean? They were like, a parent would take a look at the program and be like, man, this sounds great. You're going to learn this, this, that. But then the kid gets there and it's like, listen, I'm doing school on a Saturday, right? So we have to kind of find that line between engaging, promoting, and kind of what that did for us is it sped us up. I'm very creative, and I think that's like one of my powers in a sense. So um, I love chaos from basketball, right? I love chaos. You get to see who people are in chaos, right? Their human nature shows in a sense. Are they going to panic? Are they going to find themselves, center themselves, et cetera, et cetera? So we got creative. We started different campaigns online from the Bounce Back Challenge. That was one of our challenges where we got different artists and people around the city to send us what is inspiring to them when it comes to like what is their resilient moment, how are they going to bounce back from this experiences. We engaged a lot of people. We did something called pull up where we would this is when you were allowed to play, right? So, but we were able to come to people's neighborhoods and get like 20 kids together and just play with them and then engage them like, hey, listen, which neighborhood are we coming to next? Tell us, you know, pop in. Like, so it's really engagement now. It's all about building a community. And I think that is the new marketing and the new engagement. It's no longer, hey, listen, we got this building, because I see a lot of different organizations still struggling with a beautiful facility to get their numbers up, right?
Mm.
I think there's I think there are a lot of programs out here. I think where the concern is how are we marketing the programs? Like there are like a billion programs out here, but none of these kids know that there's a billion programs out here, right? So how are we getting that information to the youth, right? I think that's where the struggle's been. And also you're right, like you see it in education right now, like teachers are not staying after school no more for after school activities. So things are definitely about to shift, right? I think we're more of a online generation right now. So we're by our phones, we're by like I see kids coming to programs, and my goal is, can you just leave your phone alone for 1 hour? How can I engage you enough to not touch your phone for an hour? And I think that's a win, right? Okay, I think it's in many different ways. Like one, we create a competitive environment so that we can show them how to lose and win with grace. You know, like you got to be competitive in life. That's something that you want to instill into these youth, but you want them to understand how to lose and gracefully lose and win and gracefully win. At the same time, we put them in situations. I call it controlled chaos, right? So I've tailored our program, especially our basketball ones, where you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And when you get comfortable, for example, one of our workshops, we use these glasses that kind of shade your eyes from looking down. So now you have to learn how to dribble the ball and trust yourself as opposed to using the senses that you rely on a day-to-day basis, right? These are the types of things that we implement into our sessions. And these are the types of things that by the end of the day, they're like, man, I didn't know I can do that. I can, you know, that you're discovering a whole different side of yourself. But that's our model in a sense. Imagine how powerful we can be if we were comfortable when things got uncomfortable.